Hello everyone, welcome to the series of webinars about software and performance, software automation. Rodrigo Moutinho. It's a pleasure to have our special guest here today. He's a developer advocate at Oracle, book author that was considered the best book release of Java and Java E from 2018, and a board member at SoJava, speaker. And recently I had the pleasure to attend a talk that he did on Oracle Code One in San Francisco. It was very great. He covered lots of topics about how to better understand how to deal with automated pipelines and containers. So welcome to the show, Elder Moraes. Thank you for being here with us.
Hi, Rodrigo. Thank you for having me, and it's a pleasure.
Pleasure's mine. So could you tell a little bit more about your background in the software industry?
Yes, actually, I'm a software developer I've been doing that for 20 years now. I started back in 90s, 1999, and exactly 20 years. Oh, wow. I'm getting old. And, well, always working as a developer. And on 2015, 16, I started working with containers, and I've worked with a very big project using containers for automation. So I worked specifically with automation for about a year and using containers. That's where that talk has born. And since 2017, I started working at Oracle as an evangelist, developer advocate, you name it. And since then, I've been talking a lot about cloud stuffs, Java, and also automation using containers or not using containers. Yeah, basically that's my background. Mostly a developer. That's why I love to do, so I'm good with that.
Awesome. So consider that you're reaching 20 years of experience. So do you have any? I always like to ask, what is the biggest nightmare you ever have when you are doing manual steps and deployments at the beginning of your career? Do you have any funny story?
Yes, because when I started, I used to work with Visual Basic 6 or 5. I don't know. I believe it was 5. And we used to deploy, our deployment stuff was executable files. And it was really a nightmare because you need to install all those stuffs, libraries, components in each machines, and the users go on the machine and install another software that changes some component or some library. And people used to solve that, to run some type of script on the network to solve this kind of problem, but the users discover how to step out that script so they can keep installing stuffs and craps on the machine. So by that time, by the beginning of my career, the biggest problem was really keep the environment on each machine or each client the same. It was virtually almost impossible. But in 2005 was when I migrated to web development using Java, JSP, and so on, servlets. And then our problems changed because we don't have any client stuff problem anymore because our client was mostly browsers. So we solved that kind of problem. But we create another problem. That's as we didn't have any kind of process to make deployments, people go on the production environment and change files. If you need to just change one page, people go there and change that page on production. So the version production is different from Q&A and test environment. So it's a nightmare. So I would highlight those both problems. First, on the standalone applications to keep all those clients the same, any other stuff. When you started to not have a problem with clients anymore, but people still working straight to the files in production and make some changes.
The second one would be the FTP problem, that you just get your file, make a little change, and put it again.
And you know, the people send file through email on the network, and they have a folder with the version for production, and we didn't have any kind of version control or repository for source code. So source code was somewhere in the network and somewhere machine that was down in the desk of somebody, and you know the name of the machine. It was like Paul or William or whatever. And if that machine dies, you die with that machine because you lost everything. So we didn't have it. We survived because, you know, I don't know why we survived.
Yeah, we have luck.
So, we are lucky. We are lucky.
Yeah. So just following this kind of problem, that so what is the for you, what is the importance of having the continuous integration, continuous development, deployment on your project?
Yes, as long as we got we and the whole market became more professional on doing software, on delivering software, on having when we start to care about availability, stability, orchestration, the whole market, the whole industry really developed all those process for keep the things working. Okay, so the whole point for me is that you need stability in all the process, not only in production on where your software is working. You need stability on each step of your pipeline. So since the very moment where you commit your source code, you need to have stability on that repository, on the process of building your application, on process of keeping your artifacts on some kind of repository, on process of deploying on each stages, on each environments, test, Q&A, production. So the most important for me is really getting professional, getting all the steps professional, treating them as most professional way, because we are professionals, and have the stability on all the steps on your whole pipeline, not only on production but everywhere.
Yeah, totally agree with you. Yeah, this is the kind of thing that we want every day on the job. That handily, if the William machine, like you said, maybe the William machine is working today. I hope so. So yeah. And now I will just go over the question that the audience did on the day that I watched your talk. That all of them are very interesting. So I will just pinpoint the question. So the first one would be, for you, what is the biggest challenge regarding containers?
Yeah, actually, think that containers is a different environment for your application. So the challenge, the most challenge that I believe is that people treat, not everyone, but many people treat containers as just a virtual machine. And if you treat them just like that, once you start getting more and more containers in your environment, and you don't prepare for that, the whole management of that becomes a nightmare, because if you don't care about it in the day one, you keep doing the things and the management and all the stuff around the containers manually. You don't automate, you don't have any tools, so you keep doing that by hands. So once they start and get unmanageable, in some point. So you need in the first day treat them with tools, treat them with manageable stuffs, so you can keep growing and keep scaling your environment application in order so you can put these things under control.
Yeah, and also regarding to the thing that you said about treating containers as a VM, also when you reach the process that you need to scale, this is something that you're going to face a lot of problems if you're considering a container as a VM, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Because it's a kind of virtualization, but it's not a virtual machine. Okay, it shares a lot of resources with the host. It has many differences from a real virtual machine. So and it's made like that, so it's not a problem. It's just the way that it works. So you need to treat stuff as they are. Okay.
Yeah. And the second one would be how to identify where containers can be useful.
Yes, I used to say that you need to choose the right tool for the right challenge, for the right task. Okay. So basically, mostly wherever you can have an application to be deployed, in mostly cases you can have a container to be used. For example, using Java, for example, is my work. You can instead of have application server installed somewhere, some machine, you can have that application server inside a containers. Basically, what you are doing when you do that is that you are adding another layer of abstraction, because we used to say when we didn't have application servers, for example, you are just running your application as a fetch jar, for example, or a standalone application. When you start having application servers, you created a abstraction layer where your application rely on servers, rely on features, rely on stuff that you don't need to have inside your application anymore. So, for example, when you start to have a web applications, web servers, we didn't need to care about requests and responses on session ID, on whatever. When we have application servers inside containers, we have another layer of abstraction layer. So we have now our application server relying on stuff that they are inside containers. So network, storage, IP, or whatever servers that they need inside operating system, they are inside containers or not. So whatever you identify that you can have an abstraction layer that make the deployment easy to you, make the management easy to you, you can probably have containers. There is no bullet. There is no silver bullet. There is no stuff that works everywhere. But mostly, when you have servers that can work as an abstraction layer, that you can put inside a container, that you can manage in a pool, for example, because mostly containers are made to work in a pool in order that you can scale, that you can shut down and create another one and keep the things going. So that the way I would use to decide if I can use containers or not.
Cool, very cool. Yeah. And maybe the next question is a little bit related, because sometimes we need to create the initial process. Probably is very simple, but how to create and deal with Dockerfiles that are not trivial, the biggest one, the big ones. So you have any tips and tricks to deal with this?
Yeah. Well, if you need really using Dockerfiles, Dockerfile is not easy to maintain. It's not easy to control versions and so on. But in many cases, you need to use them. What I would do, and what I've done so many times when I need to deal with complex Docker files, is that I created like a parent Docker file with my baseline. Okay, so in my book I have an example like that. So I needed to make a lot of changes in a container in order to have Glassfish working. So what I've done, I created a base Docker file with all the environment stuff that I need in the environment itself, variables, folders, and so on. And then I created another Docker file for Glassfish itself, depending on that parent one. So in that second Docker file, I made only the stuff that I need to make the Glassfish working. So I decrease a lot the complexity in both Docker files by separating them. And all examples that I work in my book was relying on the second one. So the first one was never changed anymore. The first one. The second one, I changed it a little bit. In all examples, I can have the Docker files doing all the stuff that they need, relying on the first one and second. Because containers working relying on layers. When you create a container, you can see many layers being created. So just the layers that are changed on the third Dockerfile or fourth or whatever are changed when we create another one. The first and the second keep the same, so you can decrease a little the complexity of working with them. Okay, so you have another ways. You can, for example, have a vagrant file for creating environments that are more complex, but specifically for Docker files that are not trivial, I would separate the responsibilities of each of them and maybe split them in 2 or 3 in order to make these things easier.
It's kind of trying to create the abstraction layer, as you said before. So you create a new one, so you okay, I'm sure that is working, so now I can go straight to my code. And
one thing that I really recommend, Bruno Souza used to say that we need to read code in order to write code. So one thing that I've done a lot of times is read the Docker files. So for example, how was written the Docker file for Apache Tommy, for example? So I go to the Docker Hub and find a Docker file and I read the Docker file. Oh, they work like that. So that way I get some insights for creating my own Docker files. How I know that there is a tool that the Docker file should be very complex. So I go and see how they has wrote the Docker file. So I got some insights for me. I remember Edson Naga once saying that, for example, when they wanna know how to write a good log library, a good log algorithm, and so on, he went to some open source projects and read the code that was written for their logging stuff. So reading what people has the code that people has written is very useful to increase your own code. So I would do that.
Yeah, this tip is awesome. I remember Yanaga saying that, and I totally agree, not only with Yanaga, but with you, because I never thought about reading multiple Docker files to try to understand better how they are treating the steps. But very, very nice one. Thanks.
Yeah,
thanks
because I learned it from my own flash in a project where I worked, where for some kind of crazy reasons I needed to have a Postgre 8.2 that's very old, working inside a container. And of course, Postgre official project don't have this Dockerfile working for Postgre 8.2. So I need to create by myself. So basically, I need to create a container to download the source file, the source code of Postgre 8.2, and create the container by myself. So I needed to go really deep on each aspects of creating that container for Postgre and create my own one. So since that day, actually that kind of habit saves you a lot of time, because you don't need to spend that amount of time that people already spend doing stuff. So it's really helpful and really increase and improves the way that you write your code everywhere. Can be Dockerfiles, can be Java, can be any language.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, this is the kind of challenge that you need an extra help to solve, because it's a tough one.
Yeah.
And so one of it was on the title of the topic, so maybe that's why they asked this question. So do you see any risk using containers?
Yes, and the risk for me is related to something that I've talked earlier. That is, you do the things by hands. You do the things without any kind of tool supporting. For example, you try to scale your containers without a scaling framework and a scaling environment and so on. If you try to do that by hands, you fail. So basically, you are not treating the things professionally. That's where we talk in the beginning. So you need to understand that containers, it's made for not made for scaling, but sometimes you need to scale. So and you will get like addicted in doing things inside containers. So you keep growing, you put the containers, and at some point it became unmanageable. So you need to keep the things managed. So the biggest risk for me is that one, that you don't care about manageability. And if you don't care about, sometimes you will suffer, sometimes your project will suffer, your results will suffer. So for me, that's the biggest risk if you don't treat that professionally since the day one.
And also regarding to microservices, if you put it on this perspective, if you're having trouble on manual steps on your big monoliths, when you just split on multiple ones, you just increase your nightmare instead of helping you to evolve. So yeah.
In some talks when I talk about microservices, some people ask, for example, what should I do to migrate my monolith to a microservice? So how I migrate my monolith to microservice? And I usually ask, before anything, do you have a major process of building, testing, and deploying software and automated? If not, don't do that. Don't even start think about microservice if you don't have automated pipeline for building, testing, and deploying. Because as you said, if you have problems with one file, with one artifacts or two artifacts, imagining dozen artifacts, imagine hundreds or even thousands of artifacts, and each one having different versions and whatever nightmare they do have, you just fail. Your project will start in failing because it becomes unmanageable, like I said, for containers.
Yeah, and the next question is also related to this, because there is a question that for those ones that were starting, how to convince the team and the company about the benefits of using containers.
Convince the team and the company and the boss, the people that pay the bills, that sign the check. It's almost the same for me as for any other technology. You need to prove the people the gains. You need to prove the people the results. And how you do that? You show the results. For example, you can build a small POC, a proof of concept, and show them, look this how is better for any reason. For example, if we deploy our application in containers instead of installing on a server, we can have a cluster in one machine, and that cluster can be managed from Kubernetes, for example, and we can guarantee our availability of application, for example. So especially people, the managers, the directors, the people that pay the bills, that pay the check, they will sign the check, they are moved by results. Okay, so you need to show results. No matter if container, no matter if in a new language, no matter if a framework, whatever you are trying to sell inside your company for your team or whatever, you need to show the results. And not only for people that are above you, but people that are maybe at your side or below you, not below in the, but your team or your leaded people. You need to show them why that stuff is good, what kind of results, what kind of improvements we could have in our project. That's what we do, for example, when we talk in conference. We need to show our audience why that stuff that we are showing is good for them, how that stuff will help them on the daily activities, on their projects, and so on. So show the results, show the benefits, show the improvements. And maybe if you show the results and the results are good, people will get convinced.
Yeah, and also going forward with this process. So okay, I convinced my boss or my team or my teammates to apply containers, but I started to do this, but sometimes things get not exactly the way that we want to be. So how to deal with the lack of trust when things like start to not working very well in the project? So how to how can I say this, to start to going forward, even with this lack of trust, that maybe your teammates, hey man, you said to me that this thing is good, and what about now that is going this thing? So how do you have any tips to deal with this?
Man, I saw it a lot of times around my career, not only with new technologies, but with new projects, with new whatever, you name it. What I would say is that you need to not give up, because if it's really good and you believe it's good, if it's not working, it's maybe just a moment, maybe just a phase, it's just something that we didn't figure out how to do that. So you need to not give up, keep going, and really figure out why it's not working. Okay, it's something that we didn't understand. It's some approach that's not okay. It's some pattern that we use that's not for this reason. So you need really to figure it out. But if you just stop in the first problem, the first lack of confidence, lack of trust that your company has on you, you won't do anything. Because we have problems in any project. We have problems with any. Even if you master the technology, maybe you have some problems. And it's not always related to technology. Maybe it's related to people. So I would say that you don't give up, don't stop doing the right stuff, and figure out what's not working and solve the problems. And once you solve the problems, show the people, hey, remember that you're not trusting, you're not believing what I was saying because it's not working. I figured out we were doing that stuff wrong, so now we are doing right. And see, it's working right now. It's okay. So you need to do that all the time in your entire career. I need to do that in my job right now. That's not really focus on writing code and stuff, but I still need to prove that my work is worthy, that the things I'm doing is worthy of doing. So you need to do that in many aspects of your career, not only on containers, on environments and projects.
Yeah, sure. And the sharing part, I think it's the main thing that we need to do, because when people start to know more about the errors that you can get,
Yeah.
it's better to, oh, this one Elder told me how to solve is one. So
Yeah.
if you get things to you only, this scenario could be worse.
Yeah.
I will just make a little shift. We're talking a lot about containers, but your talk was also about pipelines. So one of the questions that they ask is it trivial to create a CI/CD pipeline?
I won't say it's trivial, but it's doable. But and another thing that I would say is that although it is not trivial, it becomes easier by the course of the time. Okay, for example, the project that I've worked, I've told in the beginning, we had like 70 or 80, 80 systems automated inside the same environment, the same pipeline. So we have Java, .NET, PHP, Python, Visual Basic, Android, iOS. We have a crazy amount of different technologies working and automated inside the same pipeline, the same automation process. So we are really not trivial to build that. But what we have done that we started to create once the thing started running, we started creating some approaches that were common for some technologies, some kind of patterns to build our jobs, our automations. So once you start identifying the things that work in the same way, that should be done in a standardized way, you start to apply those standards, those approaches, and the things started to become easier. So in the beginning of the project, you automated, for example, a Java EE project inside the pipeline. We spend like 3 or 4 days. In 2 or 3 months, we start doing that in 1 hour, 2 hours, depending of the project. So because you have figured out a lot of problems, so you don't fail on that problems anymore. You change these things in the environment, so it would become easier. You start to creating all those standards, so these things start doing much more faster, and so you can treat different on deceptions. So I'm sorry. So only the exceptions that we try and treat as exception. So answer the question, is not trivial, but become easier by the course of the time as you get used to it.
Yeah, great. And the next question, I think you maybe already answered the question, because I would ask you, what about pipelines regarding microservices? I think your project was not like a kind of microservice, but it was like many products. So it's maybe it's some about what you said about start doing, and then you're getting the confidence to know more how you can deal with each type of project.
Yeah, and what I would say about pipelines and microservices is that build your pipeline before start working with microservices. Please do a favor for yourself. Build your pipeline, and the first line of code that you write, make sure that that line of code is under your pipeline. Okay, that your code is inside a repository that is managed, that your build process is automated, that your artifact, your binaries is hosted in some repository, that your deployment is doing automatically, can be automatically by itself, or you can push a button, whatever. But make sure that since the day one, you don't need to put your hands in any steps of the pipeline to make the things work in your environment. And if you still need to put your hands in some artifact to whatever reason, please build some kind of automation to get rid of that, okay? Because you will have your second microservice, your third, your fourth, your fifth, your 10th, your 50th, and whatever, and you go crazy. So make a favor for yourself and have a pipeline automated since the day one. Otherwise, microservices won't work.
Yeah.
Because, microservice is not for, I used to say that, it's not for scaling software. It's for scaling people. It's for scaling the way that your company communicates to each other. And if you don't have a communication working smoothly and accordingly inside your company, it won't reflect to or the worst, it will reflect to your software. So it's not just code, it's not just software, it's people. So you need to figure out how to do with that. And for software itself, it needs to be automated.
Sure. Yeah. The kind of, as you said, the scaling people, it's the most important part. So if you are doing this wrong since first day,
yeah,
probably you're going to have trouble in the future for sure. And considering all the myriad of technologies that are available on the market, so do you have any strategy how to choose the best one for your project, or maybe some I only choose technologies that are wide used, have great communities, or sometimes you just get a specific product. So how you use to deal with this?
As well. If you are working in enterprise projects, I will always stick with patterns and standards and big options. Especially enterprise projects, I want to use any kind of new project, new approach. New that I say it's not new, that's just not old, but it's not well stressed, not well used, not well proven in the industry. Because the companies needs to make money, and if some solution is not well tested and stressed, you are not sure that it will work in the way that you need, so you can destroy your own business or your company business on that. Actually, enterprise projects, many times you don't have that much control of technologies that are chosen. But if you have, I would stick with the projects that are more mature, that are more tested and stressed. That's why I really enjoy Java EE, for example, because it has 20 years of involvement, of code. It is really stressed and adopted by the market. We have big vendors working and really funding all those involvement. So it's really tested and proved that it works. Okay? So that's the way I would choose for my company. But if it is for myself, for a pet project, for whatever, I could try anything that I've heard or that is available. But a couple of months ago, I was talking with Adam Bean, and we did an interview, and he said that even for pet projects, he used Java EE because it's really easy to build, easy to maintain, and it just works. You write code, and surprise, it works. So you don't have any you can do your part as developer. Okay, you can focus on writing your code, and all the stuff that you don't need to care will work. So that's why most of the time I really stick with things that I know that is mature, that it works, that is stressed and tested, and so on.
Yeah, great tips. Great tips. And talking about Java, so the last one was how does Java work inside Docker? Is there any difference?
No, no difference. And you just run as you would run in any Linux or Windows. Not Windows. Don't do containers on Windows, okay? But consider Linux. But we used to have some glitches related to memories, because I believe that was until Java 8 or 9, I'm not sure. But we have some glitches related to memory, because as the JVM wasn't aware that it's running inside a container, there were some situations where the JVM just keep growing that memory that it is using, and start to break that out of memory. I don't remember exactly. But since the Java 8 or 9, you have now parameters where you can strict the memory where JVM can use even inside the container. So you can have more control, because in the former way, your content will die. Your content will just crash and won't work anymore. Now you can have more control, and just your application dies, not your container. So you can work in the level of application, not in the level of the containers. Because if your container is dying, crashing, you can create a domino effect in your application. So it's easier if you can deal with that just in the level of the application.
Awesome. Awesome. I think this is one of the main things that we need to pay attention with Java and containers, for sure.
Yeah. There is a great talk, I don't know if it's recorded, I believe so, from Rafael Benavides from Red Hat, talking specifically about managing memory inside, managing Java memory inside containers. That's really good if you can maybe find out.
Yeah, for sure. I think he wrote a very specific blog post on the Red Hat blog covering all this special case. I think it's a very good one. I will put on the show notes for sure.
Yeah.
And just going over to the automation side. So do you have what is like the main tool that you use daily regarding automation, and why you use this tool?
For me, the top of tools in automation is Jenkins, because I used to say that the Jenkins is the automation of all stuff. Can automation almost anything using Jenkins. It I really mean, because in that project, as I said, we automated many different and completely different kind of projects using Jenkins. So for me, it's one of the best tools that were ever made. And yes, I really stick with Jenkins, but Jenkins itself alone won't do all the work. So you still need something, just a water piece.
Yeah, I love Jenkins.
Yeah, and but you need to, for example, build your project. So if you are using Java, you probably use Maven or Gradle, not only for build, but for managing your dependencies. You need to automate your deployment. So probably you're gonna use some kind of shell script and so on. But as a main tool for automation, I would stick for Jenkins anytime.
Yeah. And what is your favorite technology to automate?
Jenkins.
Maybe the shell scripts, or Ansible?
I use a lot. I use a lot of Jenkins for automation, shell scripts for building the scripts for automation, Maven a lot also. I didn't use it a lot of Ansible, but I really enjoyed the few times that I used it. We use a little of also Vagrant for automated the creation of the environment. So it's really great if you need to just create a new environment. For example, our whole pipeline environment was all contained inside one Vagrant file, so we can start from scratch a new pipeline environment in 1 hour, for example, or less. So that is the main tools that I've used for automation.
Great. And the final one that I always love to ask: what is your best advice for those that want to automate their software delivery and avoid the dependence on the hero developers on the team?
Yes, we need to figure out and notice that automation, it's one of the main parts and one of the most important parts, not the only one, but one of the most important inside the DevOps culture. And I like to highlight that DevOps is a culture. It's not a role, it's not a position, it's not a person inside a company. It's a culture that the whole company should embrace in order to work. So the best advice that I would do is think about automation as some stuff, not the boring stuff that you need to do because your boss has ordered you. Some stuff that it will make your life easy. If it's not making your life easy, maybe you're not doing right, that you're not doing correct. So treat it as something that will really improve your delivery, you improve your results, you improve your project, you can maybe sleep better because you know that these things would follow some steps that were automated. And automation is not for just delivery, but also for scaling, for example, scale up, scale down. So see automation as some really biggest part of DevOps, and DevOps should make your life easier, not harder.
Awesome, man. Very good. And do you have any final thoughts? Something that you want to share, promote, something like this? I also can point.
Yeah.
Buy his book.
Yeah, I would share my book, but you already have it. Also, my Twitter, it's at Elder Java. Whoever wants to ask questions, to get help about anything that I could help him, but not anything. But yeah, I'm available. Just ping me and we can talk. If you need some kind of webinar for your user group, for your company, and whatever, I'm always available to help. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, and when this guy says that he's available, it's like crazy. The São Paulo TDC from last year. I don't know if it was São Paulo or Floripa. He did like more than 10 talks, man. So this guy is very good.
Yeah, it was Floripa.
Yeah, so this guy is very good on speaking, and he loves to share what he knows. And so
thank you.
Man, thanks a lot, Elder, for being here with us. It was an awesome interview. And for those that want to know more about software automation and avoid the dependence of avoid having this hero developer on your team, subscribe to cyborgdeveloper.tech and receive this great information, notification about the upcoming interviews and things like this. And so that's it. So see you next time. Bye-bye.
See you. Bye-bye, guys.